It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and it's another one.
And another one.
Of covering film festivals, this time a major film festival in Sydney Film Festival, and it's another one of Pacifica, specifically for me, Tongan storytelling and joy. Yes, friends and lovers, we are kicking off the Sydney Film Festival coverage the only way we know how to, baby. We're covering red, white, and brass.
Mm-hmm. Fast for the pod.
Oh, it's so exciting, OT. I also had the opportunity to interview the director, Damon, as well as the lead actor, JP. And that will also be the first interview that we'll be releasing as a part of our Sydney Film Festival coverage.
And you got to host the screening and Q&A.
I did. I guess while we're here, friends and lovers, we do put a lot of love and a lot of nastiness into this podcast, but it also comes with great relationships as well as opportunities. Big malo albito to Liv from Mad Men, to Kate from Nixco, to Ben from Sydney Film Festival, and also the supportive team at Randwick Ritz. Sold out, 600 capacity.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Who knew I could be so Tongan, OT?
I knew.
Oh, but it's a gorgeous time, friends and lovers. There is one more screening if you're listening in linear time as a part of the Sydney Film Festival, but it has been sold out. But also it will be officially in Australian cinemas from June 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
As I'll ever be.
Let's get on with the show. Shoo! Hello, friends and trumpet lovers. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host, Katie.
And OT.
Congregate around the collection bowl of Tongan mana and ingenuity. You wait until we do a Kenyan thing.
We already did.
Exactly. It's my time, so get out of the spotlight. Get information for the triumphant red, white, and brass this week.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! You sounded like the actor in The Young Rock.
Wow.
Friends and lovers, if you know, you know. Again, welcome. We're not going to talk specifically in regards to spoilers, but like OT says all the time, if you do a Google, you will know that Tonga did beat France, even though we love our European friends and lovers. And they also put together a brass band. So there's definitely a lot of nuance and a lot of detail and a lot of themes that I want to talk through today. But let's get into general sort of information. Again, thank you to not just the PR relationships, but all of our beautiful friends and lovers that have supported our podcast. You know, when I say we come up together and we win together, I absolutely mean it. Thank you so much to the director of Red, White and Brass, Damon Fupuliai. He was so gracious on the screening Q&A night and also during the interview. Writing the screenplay together with Damon, we have Halai Fonua Finau, who, yes, should sound familiar because we recently covered Panthers.
Yep.
And this is also based on his life as well. In regards to cast, in a first lead capacity, we have John Paul J.P. Foliaki. We also have Demetrius Schuster Koloa Matangi, Hans Faave Jackson, who I might be finding out is Samoan, but that's okay. Andy Faonga. We also have Miki Falesil. In regards to the Finau clan, we have Lupeti Finau, Devita Finau, as well as Valeti Finau, Ilaisane Green, Onetoto Ikavuka. We also have Nathaniel Lees, who I am also claiming as Tongan, if that's okay. Hariata Moriarty, as well as Matt Ruglies, in regards to producers, we have Georgina, Alison Conda, Halai Fonua Funau, Ainsley Gardiner, Carthiel New, Taika Waititi, who we did see
We did.
at the Australian premiere, and Morgan Waru. Friends and lovers, I usually don't read that many credits, but it's a beautiful, gorgeous thing to have Pacifica, people come together for a Tongan story of love and triumph and joy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get into first impressions, OT.
An exceptional accomplishment, skillfully pairing enjoyable humor with a narrative that radiates joy and positivity. This captivating cinematic journey creates an indelibly uplifting experience, a must watch.
You gotta give us a chew after that, OT.
I do not know if I can or if I'm allowed to.
I allow it.
Oh, next minute, I'm out here being cancelled, eh?
You'll be cancelled for many other things before that.
True. But wow, I think this was one of the highlights for me this year. I've not come out of the cinema just feeling pure joy and happiness and easy breezy and just feeling like a whole load has been lifted because you laughed, you enjoyed. I've watched this movie 3 times now.
Yeah.
And in each iteration, I found something new that I loved more.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really fun. I have yet to see a movie this year that made me feel this way.
Yes.
And wow, I cannot recommend this any harder.
Man, Oatsy's going to be bringing Tara to the cookout, eh?
You know it.
Oh, man. I love your first impressions. I'm glad you loved it so much. And you're right. We did watch it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
We did get the screener in the lead up to the interview. And then we went to the Australian premiere at State Theatre, which had a capacity of 2,000 seats.
Yep.
That was a very emotional moment for me in particular, which I guess we can also come to as well. And then the third time was during the hosting of the screening and the Q&A. And, OT is a big proponent for rewatchability.
I am.
I don't necessarily, for me, that's not necessarily a qualifier of what I would contribute to my overall sort of rating or score about a film. However, this was it was so beautiful to experience it 3 times and still feel like we can watch it many more.
Exactly.
Red, White and Brass is reflective of the exciting time in world cinema centering Pacifica, specifically Tongan, storytelling and joy. Gorgeously heartfelt, thoughtfully paced, and wrapped in love. Straight mafana.
Mm-hmm.
You think I'm not going to get mafana on a Rotten Tomatoes quote?
I knew you would.
Welcome to the KT Playerdom, friends and lovers. Oh, wow. What an experience. What an experience. What an experience. I guess before we kick off into specific sort of themes that came out of Red, White and Brass, I kind of just want to talk about the moment that we're in now of world cinema, zooming into Pacifica storytelling, which we have covered across the podcast recently, and then also zooming into Tongan storytelling too.
I feel like this is such a big moment, having a Tongan-focused movie that not only creates this sort of sense of togetherness in the cinema, I think it will translate farther. I think it's one of those movies that has hit a sweet spot somehow that it will sort of transcend.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy to be in a space where we get to watch stories told by the rightful owners of the story.
Story sovereignty. Do you speak it, OT?
You know it. We were so far removed from days where, we've got to tell stories about someone different is writing it or someone else is shooting it.
Yeah.
It's so good to see a full cast. There's just the people. For the people.
Yeah. Do you live for the people because you die for the people? Power to the people, OT.
No, it's so refreshing because you can tell that the X factor is in there because there's nothing missing. Things are flowing. The chemistry is there.
Yeah.
There are moments in the movie that I'm sure we'll get to. You could feel something was happening. I couldn't describe it watching it the first 2 times, but wow.
Yeah.
Did it not just come all together the third time watching it? And I know it was extra special, you doing the hosting in Kiwe as well. That just, wow, I loved every single minute. And I just love the fact that we get to be in an era where we get to see stories being told by the rightful owners and in such a high quality manner.
I absolutely agree. You know, we're all about centering our own stories. Everyone else is welcome to come along, but the spotlight is on us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not being done in an exploitative way. It's not being done in a caricature sort of way. It is unfortunate that even though Pacifica, like cinema, storytelling has obviously been around since, you know, the Moana. But in regards to cinema, we are relatively new in regards to, I guess, a presence and I guess being a part of a global sort of tapestry. But even in that short time, we also fell victim and became the caricatures from a white sort of lens, right? And I say 2023 and onwards, shucking and jiving no more, OT.
No more.
Take that back to the 1930s with King Kong. Because we don't even know what they mean by natives, but we know.
Mm-hmm.
But I am loving this moment. I am loving the pure joy. You know, I even think of shout outs to Hanel Harris and the team at CIS because they have a specific sketch, you know, about getting a Samoan to play a Maori person, but they're dressed like Pocahontas. You know what I mean? Just like conglomerating everything together and it doesn't make any sense at all. This is a time of beauty. This is a time for joy. And, you know, I don't know if anyone else will make these sort of comparisons, but, you know, when you watch a film like Boys in the Hood, rest in love and peace and power to John Singleton, it is very specific to South Central LA. And even though it's in English, when you talk about slang, when you talk about language, when you talk about the way that words are used, it doesn't need to explain to you what the cadences are in that particular language, right? You know, or even when we're watching Rafiki, you know, if we want to bring it all the way to the motherland of Africa in Kenya, there are moments that don't need to be explained because if you're following along with the story, it's enough to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
And that's something that I thought was really interesting about Red, White and Brass was there were moments where I think it might have been a word like feboto, right? And that word didn't get translated because when you're in the moment and you're experiencing the story, it doesn't need to, like, you get it by understanding where the story is going.
Exactly. There's no need to spoon feed everyone everything that's being said. Context is king and it just flows because you understand, you can tell stories. And this is one of the major gripes that I have when we get to see stories being told or people feeling like, oh, we can't have a blockbuster movie in a different language, or because we love English and everyone would want just, you know.
Yeah. Even Woman King, an older black woman in an action movie.
Yeah.
I guess just one more thing on the subtitles. I might have talked about it throughout the podcast, Friends and Lovers, but I definitely don't speak fluently in Tongan. And, you know, it's, you know, when you talk about migrating to a new country, it became the priority for my parents to learn English over us learning Tongan. But then it becomes the shame of the family that, like, you don't speak Tongan. And that's definitely a theme that we'll come to later. But I guess the reason why I wanted to bring that up is the subtitles were there, but I didn't need them. Like, I understood what was being said without the subtitles, but then I also can't articulate it back, which I guess is also another sad layer. But the fact that it's so innate in me, I don't know. I just thought that was a bit of a beautiful moment.
Yeah, sure is. I definitely needed those subtitles.
Oh, so you just zone out when my family are talking to you?
Yeah.
See, you'll get cancelled in many other ways, OT. Well, let's get into the themes. Again, would strongly recommend, friends and lovers, that you go and watch the film. But feel free to Tautu, we're going to have a talanoa, friends and lovers. The first theme that I have was something that was touched on heavily and was explored through the two main sort of characters, Maka and Veni. It's either all of us or none of us. It talks about the togetherness. It talks about community, and it talks about if we come up, we all come up together.
I think they showed that really beautifully in the movie. They created this sense of togetherness throughout.
Yeah.
You felt that there's no need for one person to succeed when everyone else is down there.
Yeah.
I think that's the mentality a lot of us want to see in our day to day. And it was so beautifully shown in this. The relationship with Maka and Veni, and even Veni being like the sort of outsider, and him transversing this world and him trying to learn, because we get to see some growth in him as well, and how he gets to embrace that, the sense of community and what it means, to the point where he is the advocate at the end as well. Yeah.
Well, I guess it would be cool to welcome friends and lovers. If you're new to the For Your Reference podcast, I'm Tongan, OT is Kenyan. I kind of want to get an idea of are you about it? Are you for the people? Are you for the community? What was it like growing up? Because as a Tongan, even if it was my cousins, but the cousins were kind of considered part of the family, nuclear sort of family, I guess you want to call it. But even stretching out, whether it was the church or whether it was extended family, whenever someone came over, it was a joke because we had no other choice but to laugh. But all of our food in the freezer, all of our fruits, everything would be given to people that would come and visit. And to me, that's part of the all of us or none of us.
Oh, 100%. I just remember hating people coming because that meant I had to go to the shops to buy heaps of things and make food that we wouldn't have made that day because fuck that noise.
Not for you, cretins.
No, exactly.
Get the good plates
Get
out.
the good plates,
Yeah.
It's a thing. And looking back, I think I sort of, I don't know.
You're looking back in anger.
No, I'm two ways about it. I was going to say.
You feel away.
Exactly. I don't think I would ever have right now plates just for guests. I think what I use is what you will use.
Okay.
But
even the sort of, I guess if you want to call it generous sort of spirit, it's that sort of giving sort of nature. If I am being honest, I would get a bit frustrated. Little Katie wanted her little chicken nuggets, but she couldn't get them because mum would give them away to her smaller cousins, right? But I find myself doing that now, even if it's a professional courtesy or if people come over, I just feel the need to give.
Oh yeah, I think it's what's been instilled in us for such a long time that it's just second nature. Yeah, but there are traits that I'm trying to fight off.
Okay. I thought you only felt joy in this film.
I felt joy. I felt a lot of joy watching this movie. And it reminded me of some, because it's completely different cultures and backgrounds. A lot of things that we share throughout, it doesn't matter if you're Tongan or I'm Kenyan. It's shared sort of knowledge and experiences. So that was interesting and intriguing to see. But what I was talking about more of, like you said, it's second nature for you to just want to give and give and give.
Yeah.
Because that's how it's always been. I want, my example is, I would never have utensils just for guests. I would never do anything like that because I feel I felt a way back then.
So your mom had a cabinet.
She had a cabinet. I would not. I was not allowed to touch anything.
To be fair, when we did travel up country to stay with your family, and very respectfully, you didn't respect it, but very respectfully, we did sleep separately. But I did see that cabinet there. And I feel very honored, even though your mum continues to call me your white friend. I'm very honored that she took the glasses out of that cabinet and we had some delicious beverages with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You're not going to address the white friend,
not for
are you?
me. Nah.
Maybe another podcast, Friends and Lovers. But, Tongan hymns are very healing, but therapy is also important, OT.
Like we always reference here, Astronomy Club. Those were the good old times.
I guess. But it's interesting because it becomes something, it became something that my family just did. My mum in particular just did. And I was like, oh my good. But now I do it, And I guess that's that sort of mafana. And I think at the core, when we're talking about like feeding and watering people, I absolutely it's innate in me. And then you have things called like koloa, or you have things called whakapale, where you're essentially like raising money, or you even saw in Red, White and Brass, they called it a conceti, like a fundraiser. Like there's always, always, always money that needs to be given, to be donated, to be willingly relinquished for particular sort of purposes. And, in the interview that we have coming up with Damon and JP, we talked about how the love extends to that. And I made a little comment, a little joke about, does it adjust for funiflation? Because the love is there, but the dollar is not stretching. Mm-hmm. You touched on something, which is the next theme that I want to talk about is, being a coconut, not feeling like you are enough. And, it seems like we're doing a double hander right now in regards to being a Tongan and being a Kenyan. You were born and raised in Kenya. Did you ever feel like you weren't enough?
No.
Right?
No. You'd watch different people on TV and all that, right? And you'd have neighbors who are different from different cultures and all that, but you fundamentally, a lot of the people were black, so you don't really get to feel that sense.
Were they black or were they Kenyan?
Oh, look at you, eh? Just because you interviewed Boya, eh?
Yeah. Shout out to Boya, NAACP nominated.
Yeah.
For his memoir.
Yeah. A very interesting book about how he talks about him being a black man in America. It's not necessarily that you identify as black until you're told you're black, which is quite a thing. But bringing it back to the movie, they did cover the essence of the coconut. We get to see Venny, who people would say, just because he couldn't speak the language or he didn't know knowing how to chop taro and all that.
Man, my heart dropped when that happened.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you know how to?
Well, OT, I'm not one to prescribe to gender roles, but if it gets me out of doing work, then absolutely. No, that's not a woman's job.
Look at you, gender role general, eh? Mm-hmm. No, but it was so intriguing to see the sort of fight. It got to him. You saw it got to Venny. He couldn't say anything, but Maka was always there to have his back.
Yeah.
It wasn't about him being able to speak Tongan or him being able to even chop taro or anything like that. It's more than that.
Yeah.
Being Tongan isn't just because you speak the language or all that.
But it can feel like that though.
I know.
I was the nerdy one in the debate club that couldn't play guitar. And that will take you very far in Western Sydney, Friends and Lovers. But, watching this film, and I'm so glad that, during the Australian premiere, my sister came with her partner and her two beautiful daughters. And the relationship between Maka and Venny reminds me of me and my sister.
Interesting.
My sister is 10 toes down, Tongan, MMT all day, baby. She's got the gorgeous traditional Tongan features. She's also with a Tongan. She's got gorgeous Tongan children. And I don't know, like learning the culture, being able to speak the language, it seemed to come a lot easier to her. And I found it hard to be able to find a way to exist and belong without being that connected, if that makes sense. So, sitting in a dark room sipping wine, yeah, that's me. I can absolutely relate with Venny, but, you get that. Like, it is mocking, and, a lot of Pacifica people will talk about how mocking is like the core of how we show love. And I'm definitely not disagreeing, because this podcast is absolutely in essence of that. But yeah, I think they called it Palangi Loi in Red, White and Brass, which means like you're not a white person, but you're trying to be a white person. There's also Fair Palangi, like you're pretending to be a Palangi. Like there's so many different ways to describe, the shedding of the layers or the becoming of, because, at another time, friends and lovers, we need to talk about the toxicity of, the proximity to whiteness in our Pacifica sort of communities. Obviously, that talks about colorism. People might even brag about having German blood, being Tongan. I have that as well, but that's definitely, that's beyond the depths of this film today. But I guess going back to the core of not feeling like enough, not feeling like you're doing enough, like you don't look the part, I absolutely resonated with that. How did you feel about the Tongan hymns in the film?
I got goosebumps. I got chills. It was very emotional and very touching. And wow, doesn't Lucky know how to sing?
Yeah. If I was born in a different timeline, I would obviously still be Tongan. But like, I would love to just live my little happy island girl life, like going back and visiting relatives in Tonga. Especially on Sundays, legit, everything was closed. Not even Jesus could get his water and wine. But like the whole Sunday would be spent walking to the church, going to church, and then walking back home and having a mean-ass feast.
Sounds like a perfect Sunday to me.
It's one of those things where like you just can't explain it. You just need to be able to experience it. Especially if friends and lovers, I strongly recommend at least once in your life to experience in real life singing of Tongan hymns. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's very replenishing.
Replenishing is the word.
Maybe Oti will share his plates after he listens. The last sort of theme that I want to touch on is tradition versus creativity versus happiness versus identity. I guess you could slot any of the three into there. We have Maka's character who every family has a Maka. I don't necessarily think I'm the Maka.
If you think your family doesn't have a Maka, you're the Maka.
Or maybe you're Samsoni.
Because I keep it fresh all day?
Yeah. Not to take too much from the interview, but Damon talked about, set design and that sort of thing. And there was a lot of research and a lot of care put into Samsoni's haircut to make sure he looks super fresh from Tonga. And he did. And also, I don't know if we ever talked about it on the podcast, but like, even if people weren't related, like there were so many people that would come and stay with us that came from Tonga. And I'm like, I get it, At first, I was a bit worried that my underwear kept getting stolen when I was in Tonga. And then you just realize they just need your clothes, man. Like whether you want to feel the mafana or not, whatever you packed, you're not leaving with when you go back to like Australia or the US or New Zealand.
See, that was a deep cut in the movie, something that non-Tongans wouldn't really necessarily be able to understand. Because when Samsoni took Venny's shoes, I just thought, hey, you know what? Keeping it. But apparently it was deeper than that.
Well, maybe you're the one taking your Western diaspora Kenyan relative stuff then. Maybe you are the Samsoni stealing people's shoes. You were on the other side of it, my love.
Apparently.
But going back to Maka, every family has a Maka, and he brought a beautiful, gorgeous energy. Sometimes it was a lot, but it definitely got them to places they never would have dreamed to be able to go. So maybe you're right. I guess in that way, there are absolutely moments, I exist outside, yelling on the other side of the wall. So I definitely resonate with, feeling like there's more than one path to identity, to happiness, to belonging, to connection.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. Everyone has to find their own path and their own way to feel connected to the culture. Because there's no one blueprint for you to be, to feel Tongan.
But I also said this in the interview. I also said it when we were watching the screener for the first time. There's a particular line in there about returned missionaries that I cackled. Like, we needed to rewind it. I needed to watch it at least 10 times before we continued the movie. And, different levels of Christianity, absolutely. But being raised Mormon, it felt a bit more removed from Tongan culture, right? There's religion and there's culture. There'll even be moments like in the Mormon church where there would be leadership saying, you can't bring this, you can't do these traditions, you can't do that. And, it was explained of like, if it's not appropriate or it's messy or, like all of these sorts of things. But at the end of the day, this is who we are. Regardless of religion, this is our culture, So going back to trying to teach my parents how to speak English and then going to a Mormon church that doesn't necessarily, from a cultural point of view, have touch points of being Tongan. Shout outs to our Tongan friends and lovers listening now. My relatives in Tonga used to call us monga monga, and I'm not going to translate that. That's just, I guess, a little chestnut for the Tongan speakers right now. But I always felt like the Katolika, like the Catholic, the Wesleyana, the Pentecostal, like those Tongans were the cool Tongans to me. Like, and they were usually the ones that had a brass band, and they were still staunchly, proudly Tongan. Uniting Church as well.
Interesting. Because I remember growing up Catholic, and the minute I tried a different denomination, I was so shocked by how upbeat it was. I was like, are you allowed to sing like this in a church?
You don't just sit there and feel guilty?
I never looked back.
I guess Catholic Tongans are different.
I guess so.
Let's end on something joyful. Something that I absolutely love so much. And especially after watching a film 3 times within a span of like a week and a half. This film is so beautifully paced.
It is.
Like there's note after note after note. There are moments of resonance. There are moments on reflecting on the scene before and getting ready for the scene that's about to come. But it's so gorgeously paced, especially for the runtime that it has. But the dialogue was really a lot of fun for me.
It shines through, so a lot of the things that makes a movie rewatchable, because you talk to the pacing and the dialogue have to be really, really good for it to get to a level where we can watch it 3 times within a space of a week and still feel as if we got something out of the movie at the end of it and still feel like, oh, we're not fatigued by watching this. It just flows.
Yeah.
And how they wrote this, and even how it's filmed, the cinematography is super crisp.
Gorgeous.
So all these elements just gel into the perfect embodiment of what this movie is.
Yeah.
And I can't find anything to fault it. Neither would I. It's one of the really highlights of this year. Yeah.
All of the chefs were coming with their A game in this film. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, friends and lovers, for joining us. We always get super ethnic, so I won't say that this is the most ethnic we've ever gotten. But thank you for joining us, friends and lovers, another week in the For Your Reference household. If you have had a chance to watch Red, White and Brass, go and watch it again. If you haven't, I guess save your money for that marfanaflation and all that popcorn and nonsense. And you know, get yourself there. Take the kids, take the nieces, take the nephews, take the parents, and have a really good time. We're going to finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference. OT.
I'm going to reference Head High.
Hey, shout out to Damon who directed 2 episodes of Head High.
Yeah, and we've covered it on the pod as well. It's really, really good. Sad that it didn't get more seasons, but it's a story worth telling and it's a show worth watching.
Okay, I really loved, you know, Friends and Lovers. We are interviewing, we have and will be for the Sydney Film Festival, interviewing a lot of filmmakers. And, you know, this segment inspired us to ask this question whenever we interview filmmakers on what they would pair with Red, White and Brass. I love Damon as well as JP's answers, but I'm not going to take it away from them. So definitely go and listen or watch the interview when it comes out. I'm going to surprise you, OT.
Surprise me away.
If you want a feel-good film on lovable misfit characters while also not shying away from the very core that makes us human, Riders of Justice, baby.
Ooh, wow. You love your muds. Eh?
I do love my Mads. If I'm giving away honorary Tongan tokens, it belongs to Mads Mikkelsen.
Hey, even before me.
I thought you were 10 toes down Tongan already, Samsoni. If you would like to redeem your honorary Tongan tokens on Twitter and Instagram, we're at For Your Fun.
Write us an email at hello@fypodcast.com.
We're also on Enjoy the Next 3 Weeks of Sydney Film Festival Coverage podcast if you like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys very, very soon.
See ya.
Mwah!